1. This story is from a good 15 plus years ago, when I was a much more fit Marine. Here's some background to set the stage. I graduated high school in 2001, and decided the best way to pay for college, and to get the F away from my family, was to go to the military. Being young and dumb, I decided that if I was going to do it, I might as well do it right, so I joined the Marines. Well, I started the boot camp in August of 2001. 9/11 happened about a month after I got there. My time in there was filled with a bunch of stupid stories about people trying to flex their rank on us lowly junior enlisted folks. I'm sure I have a bunch of other malicious complaints, but the one below stuck with me. On to the malicious complaints. In boot camp, we were issued, I think, 4 or 5 sets of camouflage uniforms. After that, we had a measly $100 or so a year for a uniform stipend. Well, 1 or 2 years into my enlistment, the Marines decided to go high speed, with new digital print camo and suede leather boots. I think the first set of green and desert were provided, but we were expected to pay for anything else out of our stipend. Those things aren't exactly cheap. I enjoy the new uniforms much more than the old style because they didn't require ironing, and we no longer had to polish our boots. But I was also more concerned with getting them stained and dirty. Every year we had to do rifle qualification. The range was pretty nasty sometimes, and you would often have to perform your prone shooting in nice mud puddles. I would always pull out my old camis and iron them and polish my old jungle boots each year before going to the range. Not a big deal for the first few years. The last range qualification of my 5-year contract was about 3 months before the old uniforms were to be retired, and about 2 months before I was going to be a civilian. I had no more fucks to give at that point. I showed up the first day to the range, and I was literally the only one out of several hundred Marines in old-school green camo. Nearly immediately, well, we get there like 4 a.m., so probably 6 a.m. or so, I got chewed out by some first sergeant for not being in proper uniform. I explained to him that these were my issued camis at boot camp, and that I only had a couple pair of digitals, so I didn't want to dirty them on the range. At first he accused me of buying them, and honestly thought there was no way that I was issued them. He wasn't persuaded by my explanation, and I was told that I'd better show up in proper attire the next day. As soon as I got home, I pulled up the base regulations, including the recent guidance from the base commander, outlining the last date that we could wear old camis. I printed off a copy and put it in my pocket, and I went to the range the next day, still wearing my old camis. Again, he comes over to me and makes me stand in parade rest. And all that while he berates me for not following his orders. I pulled out the base regulations and stated that the base commander says that this is proper attire for another few months. He tried to bring up some reason why everyone having the same uniform is required on the range, and that the range wasn't under the jurisdiction of the base commander. It was. He ended up asking for my supervisor's info and called my staff sergeant. I thought I was going to have to cave in, but my staff sergeant actually had my back and thought it was kind of funny. So for the rest of the week, I remained the only Marine on the rifle range in non-digital camo. It was nice to stick it to the man one last time before leaving. 2. So I work in a relatively small company that does data erasing and recycling of IT equipment. I was the first man hired on the group, and I am now 2 years later the go-to guy, if my own boss is out of office. Which is to say, anything wrong with the program my boss wrote, anything wrong with a computer or someone not knowing what or how to proceed with anything, you go to me. For some time it had been just put to be decided where I was mostly needed, if we didn't have anything that needed to go out of the store, ordered a shipment that was to be packed and a delivery ordered. And it was up to myself to set up working hours. I usually did 9 to 5 with overtime later or at Saturdays, and there was balance in the universe. Then, a good 2 months ago, part of the company was finally sold. We lost access to the old mother company and their resources, tech support, and general support staff that had knowledge I never knew existed. And with them, some contracts that really hurt. Oh well, I was doing my job, in my mind quite well, but I am also very biased, and tried keeping us up to date. But I slowly realized that me having to do 3 different things meant we got more and more behind in my main section, data erasing. And if I pushed there to keep up to date, the location where units are cleaned and graded for future reselling was behind, aka the position I was not at wasn't doing so hot. All the while we had a guy doing very well, registering new units that needed to be erased or at the very least tested, so we had an issue. I contacted my boss first to inform him that we had an issue, and that our weekly output wouldn't match what we had expected initially if I was to start helping with the other sections. He looked at me directly and just told me to do my best and focus on my position, while sighing. Again, I cover everything, but I am hired to make sure units get erased. I started putting out units, and what is meant to be a 24-hour, max 48-hour wait after being erased before they are started in the next section is quickly getting out of hand. We are talking about 100 units that are on hold after a few days. This is bad. I started being told from my boss that the line is backed up and he wants me to do something about it starting next Monday. I say sure thing. Now everyone knows if you move someone from one position to another, he clearly can't function in both, right? Wrong. My boss seems to expect me to have arms like Mr. Fantastic, because he starts whining to me the following week that we are not erasing enough units. I am trying to explain the issue, but I don't know if he's having a rough day or he is stressed out of his mind. But I am met with the oh-so-famous, "Don't think, just do your job." Jeez, okay. I mean, you sure? If you give me an order, I will follow it. And this job, while nice, isn't paying me enough to warrant carrying, so yeah, okay. The last 2 weeks, as of writing, I'm writing this on Saturday, the 11th of December, 2021. I have been focusing only on erasing. Have we had sick people that meant other locations have had issues? Not my problem. I focused on my station. Was the boss seemingly doing something that was important? Well, sorry, co-worker. I think you either need to talk with boss man or send him a mail. I am told to prep an outgoing delivery and order its shipment. I write a confirmation mail and don't start until I have it in writing that I am to leave my station to do this. This actually causes my boss to scratch his head, as I have never done this. Friday, 10th of December. My boss called me over and asked me if everything is well. I ask why, and he tells me that while we are erasing enough units, our line is super backed up, and asked me if I hadn't noticed. Of course I had. I'm standing next to it. Apparently, we had units that were about 3 weeks overdue in the system, as they hadn't moved from when my station gave it the clear, and we had about 1,100 units, mostly laptops, waiting to be cleaned and erased. Why had I not done anything about it? I just said, well, I was told to do my job. He made the surprised Pikachu face. I could see he was getting annoyed, and he told me to go back to work so he could think of a solution. And after about 30 minutes he came over to me and my main co-worker and told us that on Monday we would have to really make an effort to get something done with the units down there. My co-worker, who I trained, has never had to do that section. He will be able to, especially if we both go down there, but he will be slow and ineffective. And it will just remove the output in our main section. If we go down there, I will only be able to keep the boat afloat, so to speak, as I won't outphase my co-worker, nature of the station. And he won't produce enough. So we are caught in a sort of Ouroboros loop. I have and am in compliance with my boss's work orders, and I will continue to be so until he apologizes and gives me autonomy back to fix his screw-up. 3. This was a few years ago now. What I've heard, the changes I helped instigate have been reverted. It is a good story nonetheless, but let this be a lesson that no company ever has workers' backs. I used to work at a major grocer. They more or less supplied all restaurants, hotels, school kitchens, etc. in my country. Since all didn't need food at the same time, they scheduled workers for different times. Usually the bulk of food would be driven out in the afternoon before it was needed, and deliveries could not take more than 8 hours tops. They also promised their customers to fix problems with their orders. Say if a picker had missed an item, or taken the wrong one, or if a carton got destroyed while delivering, etc. All this amounted to a very rigid structure, where management required top quality, We had detailed reports on everything, and if we were below efficiency, we got serious talks with management. Because the job was easy, they could handle large turnover because training to 100% speed took no more than a month or two. This pushed long-time workers to be excellent all the time, and most people that had been there a year or two picked their orders with 100% or close to accuracy, and also were above the set efficiency margins with a good amount. We actually got nothing back from management from working more efficient. No increased salaries or bonuses for being above our weekly goals. Keep this in mind later as it is important. To handle customers' various demands, we had 2 morning shifts, 6 to 3, 7 to 4, and a day shift, 9:30 to 6 p.m., and evening, 3:30 to 10 p.m. We also didn't assemble orders on Sundays if there were no leftover orders that couldn't be finished during Saturday. Generally, day shifters had the worst salaries since it was precisely in the unflexible time margins. In my country, you were paid more for worked hours between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. There were large disparities between the shifts. Almost all new employees began working on the day shift, hence it became known as the chaos shift. The more seasoned workers began hating this shift since they had poor handling of picking trucks and were slow in the narrow alleyways. Newbies obviously couldn't do much about this, and it wasn't their fault. Adding to that was that earlier shifts got priority at getting home earlier if the company as a whole were ahead of orders. Now to the malicious compliance. The earliest shift, 6 to 3 p.m., had to pick for a major fast food chain each morning. This was heavy work. A box of fries weighed 15 kilograms and an order typically had 30 boxes. It wasn't unusual that you would pick a total weight of 7,000 kilograms or more during a whole shift. If they finished early, they usually got to go home for the day. Hence, it was sought after to work there, and many of us day shifters applied to switch shift. The line to switch got longer and longer, and during my 3 years of working there, few actually got to switch before the incident, since the only reason the company had to switch an employee was if one working the other shifts quit. During summer months, the ordinary earlier shifters went on their vacation, and in July and August, more seasoned of us day shifters got to switch shifts to fulfill the fast food chain's orders. Management could not force us to do this, but we did it voluntarily, and they could do our weekly schedule however they liked. Typically, it got really bad with early mornings and later evenings intertwined. It was against labor laws to schedule us like that, but we didn't say anything to our union since we wanted the earlier shifts. It was amazing to finish early. I had time to hit the gym, go to the beach in the afternoon, and have a beer with friends before I got to bed. After working those hours, I really wanted to switch, but management was extremely stringent. It worked for them. They could keep the large bulk of people on less expensive day shift and ask them for help when needed. They didn't have to switch anyone, but I had an idea. I talked with all the people that usually switched shifts and convinced them that if no one switched, they had to move people to the earlier shifts since they did not have enough people to do the required tasks. I also talked with all of the seasoned workers to stop doing extra work. For my plan to succeed, I needed everyone to do minimal work and no one to switch. It was glorious. Efficiency numbers plummeted. For 4 whole weeks, management had to ask people to come in on Sundays to work whole 8-hour shifts, which was 300% salary due to it being weekend and overtime. I heard from friends that worked in commerce that customers were furious that orders weren't fulfilled. Management ripped their hair out since we all did minimal but fully accepted amount of work and hence they couldn't fire anyone. What did all this lead to? They switched half of the day shift to the earlier shift, which included all of the people that used to flex out of the day shift. They had to hire 5 more people, and they gave the evening shift an extra hour until 11 p.m., which was huge for them. Moral of the story: unionize and fuck middle management. 4. So I started a new job about 2 years ago, and finally found a job I'm naturally good at, which has been amazing as my performance has been top-notch. No disciplinary actions and even a few awards. So I started helping out my fellow co-workers when they were struggling, and especially helping out the newbies who just got off training. which is garbage generic training for 3 weeks, which has literally nothing to do with our sector. And we're literally told to forget everything we learned because it does not apply to us. So naturally, the newbies struggle a lot at the start, and that tanks the performance for the entire team. So I wanted to be a good team player now that I finally felt like I knew what I was doing. Apparently, that was a mistake on my part. After 3 months of helping my team, I was called into a meeting with our coach to discuss my behavior. And I was told that I was not allowed to help my coworkers because I am not trained in that field, and only the higher-ups are supposed to answer questions and make decisions within our job. Which would be fine and understandable if the coach was available for the entire 8th shift to answer questions and help people, which they are not. I pointed this out along with some statistics that since I started helping out, answering questions, our performance has gone up each month, and it helps the newbies feel welcomed, and they have a non-superior they can ask stupid questions to without worry. Another mistake on my part. Our coach got really angry, and I was basically told that this is how it is, and if I'm caught giving unsanctioned help again, I will receive disciplinary action. Okay, fine. Have it your way then, you sad, pathetic excuse of a human. I screenshotted the conversation, dug up performance reports prior to me helping, during me helping, and for the next 3 months without me helping. And wow, shocker! We started tanking in our performance. How could this have happened? So the entire team got called into a big meeting with the higher-ups, our manager and the coach, to discuss what the fuck is going on and why we're doing so shit. I let everyone speak and say their piece, and at the end of the meeting I just asked if I could have 5 minutes of one of the big chief's time, as I think I might have a solution to help improve our performance. And he was actually surprisingly interested, so he called me up after the meeting to hear me out, and I told him about the whole situation, showed screenshots, performance results, the whole 9 yards. My dude was visibly shook. A bit lost for words, to be honest, but said he really appreciated the input and would look into fixing this internally, and that was that. 3 days later, our coach resigned in search of greener pastures. Fuck you. I did get offered the coach position, but I declined as I love my current position and flexibility. It's not a toxic environment. It's just a bad apple. I did not get a pay increase. 5. I used to live on the 3rd floor of an old Victorian on a historic street in a New England mill town. It was quite beautiful, really. At this time, I think I was paying $700 a month, so you can probably guess how long ago this was. When you came into the front door of the house, which was huge by the way, there was a hallway to either side of a wide carpeted stairway. There was a bronze-lighted woman at the bottom of the stair on the railing. Anyways, on the right hallway was the 1st floor tenant store. Go up the stairs and there's a 2nd floor, and you guessed it, 1 more up, and there's me. I've always worked ever since I can remember and never really went to college. I did 1 year, figured I liked working, and just kept at it. I think the rent was about 1/3 of my take-home, but it was small, they allowed cats, and I loved it. It was so quiet until the A's moved in. Younger couple with 4 or 5, can't remember, kids, and they always had tons of kids over from church until 10, 11, or 12 on weeknights. I often wondered what the hell church kids were doing up so late with the parents, mind you. Couple times I had to go down there and knock on the door asking if they could keep it down. It was embarrassing and I didn't want to do it, but felt, hey, if it was me, I'd rather hear from my neighbor than the landlord. Guess I was wrong. Mom answered the door and LB, short for little bitch, chimed in and cut me off. I looked her straight in the face and said, I'm not talking to you. This girl would walk to church on Sundays in 6-inch heels and a miniskirt. No judgment, but she was a smart ass and a smart mouth. This happened a couple times and I got sick of it because they would always be rude about it and clearly didn't care. One night they were car surfing and screaming, having a grand old time out in the street in front of the apartment right under my window. It was dark and I went outside and I said, where the hell are your parents? And I shit you not. She goes, I am the parent. It was the mom. I'm like, do you really think it's safe for your kids to be car surfing out here? Again, she didn't care. Saw me as a party pooper. Yes, this is foreshadowing. This is 10 o'clock at night on a work night. Cool, great parenting. At this point, I am just so over them. Oh, I forgot to mention something really important. There was no off-street parking for me, so I will always park in front of the house, where I was allowed to park since I lived on the 3rd floor. Yet, little bitch's boyfriend, or whoever the hell, used to love parking his car in my spot, right in front of the apartment. Now, it wasn't marked, but come on, I pay rent there, and it was kind of known that that's where I parked, you know? So, I get home one day, and the little shit is parked in my spot, and I just about had enough. I mean, I was really done at this point, and I was livid. So I went inside, scooped my cat's litter box, and I have 3 cats. Then I waited. When it was dark and no one could really see me, I threw my hoodie up, went around the back of the apartment, and dumped the Walmart bag full of cat shit onto the kid's windshield. It was summer, so I had the windows wide open, and I was waiting anxiously to see if they would figure out what was going on. I don't know, maybe an hour later I hear, "Oh my god, what the hell? Why would someone do this?" I shit you not. I was literally hanging onto the windowsill, covertly looking out onto the street, laughing so hard that my stomach hurt for minutes. Sweet, sweet revenge. And you guessed it, he never parked there again. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Revenge is Ice Cream, episode 110. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. If you enjoyed the video, then please do share it about with all your friends, family, get on all those social media, tell people about the magic that is Hellfreezer. If your pets have social media accounts, I understand lots of cats and dogs and such have their own Instagram these days, get them to share it too. And before I go on, I'd like to give a little shout out to the author of the final story, The Cat Poop Story. And that is, well, let's give the YouTube name. The YouTube channel is Makeup and Toys, and there will be a link to that next to the final story in the description if you'd like to go ahead and check that out. Looks like fairly current, updated in the last week, so it might be worth taking a look at. I see they have a video on an elf makeup tutorial, so that's quite appropriate for the season, isn't it? Alright, see, what day is it? This is the day of Tuesday. Tuesday, that's what it is. 22nd. Year's almost over, oh dear. I'm going to keep the rest of the outro short, getting this video done a bit earlier than usual, so I can clear my Tuesday because I'm getting my booster shot today. That was the earliest I was able to get it, so got it today. Well, today on Tuesday, and I just want to have a clear day. Apparently it's okay, but, you know, just come home, relax for a bit afterward. Maybe play some games, maybe play some spoops. If I'm feeling really okay, well, we might do a gaming stream. We'll see, depending on what mood I'm in. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.